All right, y'all. Well, before we jump into this week's Roundup, my loves, I just want to take a few minutes and say, I'm sorry I've been MIA. I'm sorry. Life has been lifing, and there is big, big, big changes afoot that I cannot share with you yet, but I will very soon. But one big change that I do want to share with y'all is that we're going to be wrapping up this podcast in a few weeks. Maybe not completely for good, but for now. Look, y'all, it has been the joy, and I mean the joy of my life to have been rocking with y'all for the last almost 4 years now. And I'm so grateful for your support over all these years. I mean, we have done some things together, y'all. We've laughed, we've cried, we've been all the way live, and we did the virtual thing like more times than I can count. And if I had all the time and all the money to keep this podcast going, I promise you I would. I promise. But unfortunately, even though we have made the time together, you and me, this pod is not the business that pays me. And with all the things going on, I got to prioritize my projects. So that's the bad news and the sad news. But there is good news, which is that we got a few more episodes left in us. We got some dope interviews left that we just have to put out. Like, I can't not put these out, like this one. So we're not going to leave you hanging. And I don't know yet what we're going to do for the final episode, but I promise you there will be a toast. So please get ready. All right, back to your regularly scheduled programming. And just like that, it's time for our weekly roundup of all the things Lady just ain't gonna do this week. Number 1, 100 days of bloodshed in Gaza. So late last week, we hit a milestone of 100 days of war in and on Gaza. 100 days, 23,000 people killed, many of them women and children. And much of this is funded by our government. We haven't heard much about any progress being made towards getting hostages released in several weeks now. Not since the temporary ceasefire that was brokered back in late November. It's now January in a whole new year. My heart breaks for Gaza, and my heart breaks for us. Now, how we resolve this is going to be a defining moment for our generation. I'm not here to pontificate about who is doing what and who is saying what, because you know what? Here's the reality. The degree to which this continues depends not just on who says what and who demands what. War, unfortunately, is rarely ever about the grievance that it claims. War is fundamentally always about power. Not punishment, but power. War is a complicated set of calculations about state power, regional power, and global power. It is rarely about morality and doing what's right, because if it was, we wouldn't be killing people to prove a point about who has the moral high ground. So many people dead. When will it all end? And what is it going to take for us to get there? Other things Lady ain't going to do this week is act like somebody ain't going to be elected president in 2024. So speaking of the war on Gaza, y'all, can we just have an honest conversation about 2024? On top of all the things we're facing right now, including a fascist bloc that is gaining power, there's more talk now about people sitting out the election because they just cannot fathom how they could vote for a president who has our country paying for one of the bloodiest wars in a decade. I get it. I do. I mean, I am sick over this shit. And for those of you who have lost family and friends and loved ones, I really just cannot even fathom. I can't imagine. I'm somebody who believes that we should leverage our votes in exchange for the things that we want. And to leverage your vote, I think you actually have to participate. Not voting is not a powerful statement because relative to our population, relatively few people vote anyway, even without war. So sitting it out doesn't actually have the intended consequences that we want, which is to hold a candidate, or a president for that matter, accountable. It merely, unfortunately, takes you out of the conversation. One of the shittiest pills to swallow in politics, I think, is that somebody is going to be the president. There's not a scenario here where a few thousand people don't cast a vote, and so it jams up the election. I'm trying to see a scenario where like a write-in campaign has a massive impact on this election, but I don't see it. I'm trying to see a scenario where a few thousand people don't vote And it makes the president say, damn, I really should have done more to impact a ceasefire. But I don't see it. I'm even trying to see a scenario where perhaps a few thousand people not voting because of what's happening in Gaza makes a Republican candidate change their position on Gaza, which, to be clear, is like the one thing that Biden and Trump have in common, their position on Gaza. They want to keep doing what they're doing. So I don't have a crystal ball, and I do not have all the answers, but I do have this superpower that allows me to see around corners. And when I look around that corner, I see a matchup between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And whoever wins that contest sets policy and practice for the next 4 years, if they believe in the system that we've set up. I mean, there is a scenario where the person who gets elected feels like they should be the president forever and then rigs the rules to make it so. But let's not go too far down that stream, although we need to at some point. But for now, suffice it to say that somebody is going to be the president. And while I like the idea of figuring out how to leverage our votes in a way that extracts some concessions around a whole range of things, from a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza to some major economic and social programs, I'm sending us a plea, and I'm sending it to myself, to use our power wisely. One thing I believe in, it's us. And I believe that we can find a way to leverage our power in ways that extends and expands humanity at all levels, even in the government. And one thing I know, as somebody who's been designing strategy for a while now, is that we got some more work to do on this one. Part of the key to effective and powerful strategy is working with what you got and starting from there, as opposed to starting from the way that you want the world to be. Goals and strategy, not the same thing. Vision and strategy, not the same thing. Goals and vision are what we are trying to achieve, and it's the way that we want the world to be. Strategy is designing the path of how we get there, working with what we got. So let's begin here. Somebody is going to be the president, the person who leads on foreign policy amidst a whole host of other responsibilities. And that person is either going to be Donald Trump or Joseph Robinette Biden. So the strategy to ceasefire, I think, has to include one of them as president and the things we do with one of them as president to get to where we want to go. There's not going to be additional candidates for president because filing deadlines and whatnot, that makes that a real thing. And it's not feasible that the president is going to be Cornel West or Jill Stein because political parties and that kind of thing. Not feasible. So what shall we do here, folks? I think it begins with voting for who we can work with on the terrain that we're on. Where it ends up is up to us. All right, here's what we want more of this week, though. Number 1, Republican primaries clearing the field of nonsense like Vivek in them. Okay, so speaking of the terrain we want to fight on, the Republican primaries are well underway, y'all. And lo and behold, Iowa primaries done knocked out some of the nonsense, with Vivek Ramaswamy finally closing down his unlikely to win presidential bid. Yes, we have been spared the man who believed that the January 6th insurrection was an inside job orchestrated by federal law enforcement, a man who believed that Democrats are importing immigrants of color to replace white people, and a man who believed that there was a conspiracy to replace Donald Trump with Nikki Haley, amongst other things. Anyways, y'all, this man spent $17 million of his own money to lose. Okay, listen, you gotta claim victories whenever and wherever you can, and the fact that Ramaswamy is no longer in the race is a small but mighty victory. Yep, I said it. Other things Lady loves this week is Black women winning at all these award shows, and it is about time. So, Black women were winning big at the award shows this week, leaving Anthony Anderson to rename the Emmys the Chocolate Emmys because Black women were winning all the things. Okay, Ayo Edebiri and Quinta Brunson became the only Black women to ever win Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy and Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy in the same year. Can you believe that, y'all? It's 2024. Niecy Nash Betts won Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Limited or Anthology Series for the movie Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, and Quinta Bronson won Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series for Abbott Elementary. Io won for The Bear, which also, side note, excellent series. Shout out to the homie Renee Gube for being a co-executive producer on the thing. Like, we love to see it. Anyways, finally, Emmy's so black, and I'm here for it, honey.